Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this is today's agenda. So today's agenda we have kept really simple for you guys to understand. Okay, so we'll be just covering some of the basic palettes which are used in MuleSoft, and I will then continue the system API implementation with Venkatesh. Okay, it will be extension to whatever he covered as an experience API implementation in the previous session. Okay, so today's agenda mainly focus on the HTTP listener and request pellets. Okay, and then we this choice router and the scatter gather. Okay, so these are the two most commonly used use of pellets. So we'll be just going through them. What are these and how they are used with some practical implementation. Okay, so let's get started with the HTTP listener and request operation. So HTTP listener and request operation. So you guys have used in your assignments also, correct? HTTP listener at least, not the HTTP request, but HTTP listener you have used in your assignments, and I think we covered a bit of HTTP request in our first session as well when we went through the Mule4 event. How do the Mule4 events behave when they cross a transport barrier? Okay, so what are the so in the HTTP listener? So what is it and what it enables us to do? So it enables us to set up an HTTP server. Okay, so it enables us to receive the incoming HTTP requests. Okay, so it receives the HTTP request and it is always be placed in the source section, okay, of the flow. If you remember, right, we discussed about different sections of the flow, like source is there, processor is there, error handling is there, correct? So it HTTP listener will always be in the source section. It won't be there in the processor section. Okay, so it will always be initiating the flow. Okay, so when the flow execution finishes, an HTTP listener sends the response based on whether the flow execution was successful or not. Okay, so based on the result of the execution of the flow, HTTP listener will send a response back to the client. Okay, so we can pass like the body, right? When we send a request to HTTP listener, right, we can send the payload, we can send the different attributes, right? If you remember, right, we discussed about the different Mule4 event, right? The what constitutes the Mule4 event, right? There are payloads, there are attributes consisting of the query params or URI params, correct? So variables. So this is how you will refer to these when you in the flows. Okay, so let's take an example, like if you are passing a query parameter. So here we am passing this in this my domain login. This will be a path. Okay, and here I'll be having a method as post, and here I'm passing two query parameters, user as Aaron and age as 32. So how you would refer them in the flow? You will be referring them as attributes.queryparams.user and attributes.queryparams.age in the flow. This is how you refer and get these values in the flow. Okay, when you send this request to the HTTP listener. And this is how you will fetch the value of the host, attributes.request.host. And then here is a language, attributes.headers. How do you access the headers? Attribute.headers, accept coding, content type, and then we have the body also. What is the body? So we are passing as if we are passing this name as Aaron and age as 32, then we will be fetching it by using payload.name or payload.age. Okay, so query pairs, just remember these things, like, okay, how to access the payload and how to access the query params. So use access the payload, we just use payload dot whatever we are passing it for. Your name is passing the payload dot name or payload dot age, and if we're passing this as query parameters, it should be it as it's the past part of the attributes. So it is, we use as attributes dot query params dot user, and if you're passing as URI params, and it will become as attributes dot URI params. Okay, so yep, so payload. So Mule4 even consists of payloads. We have the attributes, and then we have the variables, and then we have the error handling. So all these things, how do we access them? This have been listed it out here. Okay, Similar to this HTTP listener, we have HTTP request also, request operation also, so which it enables us to like consume an external HTTP service. Suppose we need to make an external HTTP service call, okay, to another website or no, to another web service. So we, in that case, we use the HTTP request. Okay, in that HTTP request also we can pass the headers, query parameters, or URI parameters along with the payload. Okay, and whatever request and whatever response we get from that external HTTP web service, we can then pass it to the subsequent pellets. Okay, so you can read more about this HTTP listener and HTTP requester through the official documentation of MuleSoft. So that is a very good documentation which is provided over here. How do we configure the HTTP listener? So as we showed you some of the basic stuff about it, right? We were configuring the port 8081, right, for listening on the local host. Okay, what was the path it was listening? So all these things have been provided over here with the proper screenshots. Okay, and it is showing how to configure it in the TLS tab also. So let me just quickly show you. So this is one of the examples of the HTTP listener we have. Okay, so if I just edit this configuration, okay, so you see that I'm using a protocol of HTTP, so we can use an HTTPS also. So HTTPS, we have to configure the SSL certificates. For that, it will be a secured connection. Okay, either we can use HTTP or HTTPS, but for our demonstration purposes, we are using HTTP. So HTTPS is a bit advanced topic, so we will cover it in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so and what is a host? Host, we can use a local host or use the all interfaces 0000. So if we use a local host, it will accept only the traffic from our local host, which is 127.0.0.1. But if we use all interfaces, it will accept the traffic from the from other IP addresses also, like 127.0.0.2 or 127.0.3 as well. Okay, and then we have the port number, so we can mention the port number. So by default, the HTTP requests are received on 8081, but definitely that can be changed over here. Then we consider the base path also. We can mention the base path. Okay, so TLS settings, as I told you, if I enable the HTTPS, in that case we have to provide the TLS configuration also. We can either provide it as inline, okay, or we can provide it as a global reference. Global reference means reference to the global elements. Okay, or we can just provide the global inline. We can provide the keys to configuration. So all these things like this, it's quite an advanced thing for HTTPS and the TLS. So we'll discuss it in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so this is pretty much about the HTTP listener. Just 1 second. Yeah. Okay, and similar to that, we have HTTP request also. So I'll just ping these links over in this chat window. So here is the HTTP request. Sorry, it was HTTP request typing. So above that we have the HTTP listener. Okay. So HTTP request. So HTTP request, unlike HTTP listener, like which is already always in the source section of the flow, it will always be HTTP request will always be in the processor section. Okay, it will not be a starting point of the flow. Okay, so in that case, like we can make a call to the external web service or HTTP web service call. Okay, and with these all these options, or we can use make use of the get method. Okay, we can use the connect, delete, patch, post, put methods. We can use all these methods in our HTTP request, along with the payload. Okay, which we send to the external web service. We can define what will be the request and response size limits, what will be the headers we are passing, what are the query parameters we are passing, what are different URI parameters we are passing. So all this stuff we can pass to the HTTP request in the HTTP request operation. And how do we configure it? So all these steps have been mentioned in detail over here. How do we configure the host, where the port we have to connect for the protocol? How do we connect? Do we need to use any authentication for that, for connecting it? Do we need to connect it over HTTP or HTTPS, similar to HTTP listener? So all these things have been mentioned it over in this documentation. Okay, so please request you to please go through the documentation links which you have provided. It's a very detailed documentation. Okay, so in today's assignment, one of the assignments for today will be based on the HTTP listener and request configuration. Okay, so let's move on to the next section, which is the scatter gather. Okay, so scatter gather. So scatter gather is we use a scatter gather to send a request to multiple targets concurrently. Okay, so you may encounter some scenarios, okay, where you need to call the two web services or three or multiple web services at the same point in time. So there is no dependency between them. Okay, the first web service gets completed before the other, so it's not like that. You can call them independently. Okay, so in that case we can use a scatter gather, where the multiple flows can execute independently irrespective of waiting for each other to complete. Okay, so we have the same payload, okay, which is getting sent to different destinations at the same time. Okay, so if one of the routes fail over here, it will not impact the processing of the other two routes, and the in the end, the whatever the result will be, so it will include the array of mule events. Okay, and it will have the failure response as well, along with the success response. Okay, so and the interesting thing is that, okay, suppose we want that, okay, if one of the routes fail, okay, and but we don't want to continue, we want to roll back the transaction. Okay, even if one of the routes fail and the other two succeed, we want to roll back the transaction. That is also possible. Okay, so the scatter gather can participate in the transaction management. So that is a very commonly asked question in the interviews as well. Okay, how does or can the scatter gather take participate in the transaction management? Yes. So transaction management, what does it mean? Transaction management means, or if whether all the transactions should succeed or all should be rolled back. Okay, so if one of the routes fail, I want all the transactions to be rolled back. Yes, it is possible through scatter gather. So what happens when scatter gather is a part of the transaction or transaction management? In that case, these flows execute sequentially. Okay, so if only when the first one succeeds, only in that case the second one will succeed. When the second succeed, only the third will succeed. Even if the first one is passed or second one is passed, but the third one fails, the other two will get rolled back. Okay, so scatter gather can participate in the transaction management, so it is possible. So please remember that concept.
So just to add on to this, right?
Yeah, Venkatesh.
Guys, I have wrote one blog on the same thing, how to have a compensation strategy in Scattergather. I'm
Oh, okay.
linking that link here. So in this case, right, we will be running all the flows parallelly only. Okay, but you will see in that blog how that would be handled. So I have just pinned you the link for that.
Okay. That's great, Venkatesh. I didn't know about that. Okay, so guys, please go through Venkatesh's blog. Okay, he's mentioned how do we handle the error scenarios or the compensation strategies for the scatter gather. Yep. Thank you, Venkatesh, for sharing that. I'll also take a look at that.
So, Vikas,
Yeah, Ketan.
um, so in this gather, we have a number of message processes, right?
Yep. So
That we can call as a flow, a different flow also we can call
yep, the different
private
flows you
flow.
can also call. Yep, private flows can also be called.
Okay.
Yes.
So every activity in that gather will be part of transaction, right? Because
Yes.
I'm from a TIPCO background, and in this we have a specific transactions like JDBC or JMS. Only that particular activities will be rolled over, not the other one. So
Right,
is
whoever the activities are eligible for transactions, yes, so those can participate in the scatter gather, like JMS is there or JDBC
correct
is there, right?
JDBC.
So right, so in case like if a JMS fails or JDBC fails, that can be rolled back. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Venkatesh, you would like to add anything?
Yeah, the article which I have given, it's not directly focusing on the out of the box transaction management capability, but I have given a custom solution to that. Okay. So what
Okay.
Vikas is talking is the out of the box MuleSoft transaction management, which is provided by out of the box, I guess. But the one I have wrote, right, it's a explicit, it's a custom solution. So out of the box, even for Scattergather, I haven't used it. I can explore on that. But the one which I have wrote is right, it's a custom one.
Sure, definitely. So this is what I am talking about, Ketan. So you see over here, transaction management. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
if I just search over the Scattergather, you see over here when running the transaction, Scattergather does not execute in parallel. Okay.
Yeah.
You
Mm-hmm.
see over here, this means the second route is executed after the first one is processed and the third one is after the second one. This does not affect the way this component handle errors.
Yeah. So
Okay.
because of this reason only, I went with my custom solution because it defeat the purpose of the parallel processing when we don't want our threads to run parallel, right? So that's when the custom solution will be helpful, guys. Okay?
Okay.
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 Yeah,
Sure.
Vikas. Sorry, go on.
Yep. No worries, Venkatesh. Thank you for that insight. So, guys, I request everyone to go through that article which Venkatesh has written. If we have any questions, and we can take up in our Telegram channel or maybe in the next session. Okay, so next one is a choice router. So this is very commonly used choice router even in every other pay package, or we see like the say choice router being extensively used. Okay, so why we use the choice router? So choice router is mainly used for content based routing. Okay, so content based routing, suppose I'm passing a payload, okay, in which I'm saying that the car name, okay, I'm passing a car name, okay, whether the car name is Maruti 800 or BMW. So based on the car name I'm passing, it should the route if the car name is Maruti 800, then the dealer should be Maruti Suzuki. If the car name is BMW, the dealer should be my BMW. So like that, we are focusing here on the content based routing. So you see over here, we have a choice palette and then we have the different routing options. Okay, and if we our the criteria does not match any routing option, then we have the default option as well. So guys, it is very similar to we see like in the switch, like if you have seen the Java or the C++ programs, we similar to switch, right? Switch your case we have used over there, similar to that we are using choice. So only one of the routes which is mentioned, suppose there are 10 routes mentioned, the only one which will matching with the condition we have satisfied will be executed. If there are more than one routes that are matching the criteria, in that case the only one which is will be which will be matched first, it is a top to bottom approach basically. Okay, so we'll be just first we'll be matching the routing option 1 and routing option 2 and routing option 3, and then default. Suppose routing option 1 and routing option 2 both satisfies or both matches criteria which we are looking for, in that case the routing option 1 will take precedence over the routing option 2. So in any case only one of the routes will be executed. Okay, so here are the different steps, like okay, how do we use a choice router? So we just first we drag and drop this choice palette and then we define the condition in the when section. Let me just maximize it. Okay, and then whatever we want to do with that condition, if it is satisfied, even if we want to use some transfer message or we want to send a request to an external web service, we do that. And then we define in that default condition as well. Suppose if all the routes like nothing matches whatever we are looking for, in that case the default route should be executed, so we define this default as well. Okay, so these are the like documentation links which are provided by MuleSoft. So please spend some time here because these are very helpful. Okay, so how do we add the routes to the choice router? How do these behave? So everything like they have mentioned it over here. Okay, you see over here we have got a listener and then we're setting some variable, and in the choice, so we are saying in the choice we are evaluating the different options, whether with a variable which was set over here, which the other language is Spanish or it's French, okay, or and what the default part. If it is not Spanish or French, then it will go to the default part. Okay, so I'll just ping this link to you guys, so please go through it. And then here is a scatter gather as well. Okay, so now let's take a simple use case. I have taken a simple use case for scatter gather. Okay, so what I am doing, I'm just listening on this path scatter gather. Okay, and then I'm just drag and drop the scatter gather palette, and I'm just I just want that whatever the payload I am passing, I just want it to write it to two different directories or files. Okay, so I have just created two different directories, and I'm writing the same payload over here. Okay, or to make it more complex, what we can do that, okay, the payload which I'm seeing, I'm receiving, I can transform it, include some logics over here, and then write it to this path, or similar thing can be done for this so this write operation as well. So these write operations are not dependent on each other. Okay, so they are so they can execute in parallel. Okay, so similar way we can call the external web services also. Okay, so like which are not dependent on each other in the scatter gather. So we are sending the same payload to these two locations, and that and it is getting gathered. So it in the end, like the transform message I'm just show you, so it will just be showing us the objects of the mule events. Basically there are two mule events, so it will be showing at 0th object and first one object in the output and the payload. Basically I'll just show you this. So I have defined the localhost and on the port 8084, and the path is scatter gather. As I showed you, I'm passing this payload name as Vikas. I'll just send this request. Okay, so I'll just go to that you see over here in the first file, this file has been written in the first directory name Vikas. Timestamp is same 249, and the second one file underscore mule2. This is the second file which is written. Okay, so both these flows were executed in parallel. Okay, you see in the configuration as well, I have mentioned the write file. So I'll just mention this this the file mule1, another one is having the file mule2. Okay, so the files were written parallel into up to both these locations, and in the end whatever response we are getting, as I told you, it will be like the objects we are getting returned. So this is the 0th object saying that payload name is equal to Vikas. What are the payloads we are passing, what are the attributes I'm passing. Okay, and the second one also the first object, so this is the same payload name Vikas, and the similar attributes are there. Okay, this is how it will combine the response from the scatter gather in the transform message. So the by default the response is in the Java format, but here if you see in the transform message, to make it more readable, so I have just mentioned in the output application JSON to make it more readable. Okay, so similar to this, we have in the choice router as well. I'll just stop it. Okay, so what I am doing in the choice router, so I can add a more condition over here. I'll just add a payload. Okay, I'll just drag and drop the choice, and then I'll just drag and drop the set payload. So what I am doing over here, I am receiving a request on the HTTP listener. Okay, and then here I told you, right, in the HTTP listener section, if you might have noticed over here, you see how are we accessing the attributes or the query parameters. So query parameter that we are getting from the HTTP listener, we are using this attributes.query params. So see, same thing I have used. attributes.query_params.name. So name will be the query parameter that I'll be passing from the postman from my client, and here I'm checking this whether it is equal to Vikas or not. Let me just put a separate condition in the second choice here. So just put it as attribute. So I'll just mention here is Venkatesh. I'll just see over here that name is Venkatesh. Okay, you might have noticed this expression. Okay, if I switch to expression mode, in that case, I am able to access the whatever I have passed from the listener, like the attributes, payloads. Okay, if I switch it off, then I can just write it in the simple terms. Like we can just write it in the we will not be able to access the payload and the variable or the attributes. Okay, we have to switch to the expression mode to access them. Otherwise, if you just want the simple statements written over here, you can just switch it off, the expression mode. I'll just save it. Okay, and if the attribute which this query parameter which I am passing, it does not match, then it will go to the default section. Okay, which is here. So you are in the default section which I have written. I'll just run this project. I'll just see the configuration which I have done for listener. The path is test. Okay, and let me see. Yeah, port is 8081. Fine. Okay. 8081. Path is test. Okay, and it will be a get call. Okay, just move the body from here. Just pass the query parameter name is equal to Vikas. So let's see what response we get. Okay, I think it's just compiling. So let's wait for a minute. Okay. Okay, it's success. Okay, so it's initializing and now it should be deployed status. Just 1 second. I think something wrong with the request over here in the host.
I think it should be 001, right?
No, I was just trying to test that thing, Venkatesh. If I have put it the all over there in the HTTP request, so you should accept the others as well. About 127. I think it's still loading, I believe. Yeah. Now it is starting, I think. Yeah, now it is started. I'll just yep. You have sent the query parameters Vikas. So if I just send it as Venkatesh, the name is Venkatesh, and if I send something else like Ketan, then it should send to the that we are in the default section. Okay, the thing which was I was trying to test it over here. Let me just see if it works. Yep, it works. Okay, so in the listener section, so I think it's clear to you guys, right? How does this choice works? Any questions over here before I just show you one thing in the listener section? Okay, so if I go to listener configuration, so you see over here the host name. Okay, so the host name, if you put it as local host, so it corresponds to 127.0.0.1. Okay, but if you select the all interfaces, okay, in that case you can send the request from 127.0.0.2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, so that is the difference between HTTP all request and the local host request, you see.
Okay, that's
Okay.
interesting. This is new learning for me. That's very good.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, I think yeah, I am done with this part, and friend, how to, and we will, Venkatesh will discuss on the assignment for that HTTP request and listener. Okay, post this call for these guys. Okay.
So, shall I take it over, Vikas?
Yes, Fish. Thank you. Yep. Please
Yeah.
proceed with
Guys,
system API implementation.
yeah, so we are already, I mean, it's 3 o'clock. I hope that's okay if we can just stretch it for another 30 minutes. I hope you are okay. Everyone, Shubda,
Yes,
Ketan, Kiran.
yeah,
It's fine for me.
yes, yes, fine, Venkatesh.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, Venkatesh, please proceed. Thank you.
I'll share my screen. Let me know once you can see. You're able to see
Yeah,
it?
it's up. Yes, yes, Venkatesh.
Okay, cool. So let's see where we have left last time. Okay, so guys, I talked about the experience layer part last time, right? So now what we are going to do, we are going to see how this communication is getting established, how the connection will get established from experience and system layer. And in system layer, how we create object store. I know we should have discussed with object store first, but we'll discuss about object store in more detail in subsequent session. But I'll just give you a brief idea about the object store in the current session, not detailed one, only a short idea why we are using object store here. Okay, so we'll see that in the system layer implementation, and then in the experience layer we'll add a logic to make a call to system API. And as this is a request call, we need a unique ID for each and every request. So we'll see some data view functions there, how we are generating the unique ID and all. Okay, guys. So let's jump to this one. I have already created one design in system API and I have imported in my application. So now, as we can see here, my system API is with the initial skeleton structure only. I don't have any object store and anything here. Okay, so by default, we won't be able to find object store. So I'm going to write the system API for post first. I'm going to create that record. Okay, I'm going to do that first and then we'll talk about the fetch one. Okay, so now by default, we'll not see the most of the modules in our studio. Okay, I have already implemented that, that's why I'm seeing here. But if it's not available, you can simply go right click on your project, go to manage dependencies, manage models. Okay, there are two ways you can find the module. First, either it's three ways actually. It's either featured module, which is by default Anypoint Studio will have it here under this, the most used models, most featured module that you can find here. You just have to check, click OK, and the module will get added to your project as a dependency. Okay, if it's not here, then go to Exchange, and from Exchange you enter your credential, type in the module name, you will find it there. It will again add it to here. And from the Maven, you can add as a dependency, as a jar, or you can just add a third-party dependency directly here and run this install command. So this will install that particular jar in your local M2 folder. I hope you all are aware about the Maven, guys. If you are not, we can have a separate session for that. But you let us know if you need that session, okay, guys, on Maven. But with this, we will install that jar into your local M2 folder. Okay. So let's get started. So my requirement is like I have to store my customer data into object store. Okay. So if we go back to the flow again, so once the request comes in, I will be storing that data into object store and giving response back to the consumer. In this case, the consumer is X customer API for the system layer. Okay. So it's not yet added. Let's see how much time it takes. So sometimes Studio takes some time. Okay, it's again dependent on the configuration what we have in our machine. Okay, usually it's recommended to go with 16 GB RAM, but let's see. Okay, it's not yet loading. Give it a time. Meanwhile, it's loading, right? I'll show you one more interesting thing about DataView Playground. I know so far we haven't discussed anything about DataView Playground, but I said, right, when we are inserting a data into a system API, we have to make sure we are assigning a unique customer ID to that record, right? So what I have done here, I have just taken this, sorry, where is the playground? Yeah. So this is the DataView Playground where you can play around with your DataView scripts. Okay. So what I'm doing here, there is a UUID function which will give the, if I just remove this and if I have UUID, it will give a GUID in this particular structure. And from that GUID, I'm just splitting that GUID in the based on the hyphen, and I'm picking up the first instance from that quick. Okay, if I remove this, you will see, right, it has split like this. So I'm just picking up the first one always, okay, as a unique one. So just for our demonstration sake, I'm going with that. Usually the random key generator will happen at the backend side only, right? We don't have to worry about it. But for our demonstration sake, we are going with this, okay? And in our subsequent session, we'll discuss more on the DataView functions. In that time, we'll go through few of the functions and we'll get you familiar with the DataView scripts. Okay, guys, so don't worry at all about this. Let's see if the flow, yeah. So object store is here. Okay, so just for our understanding, I'll just add some logs, okay, before and after. And once the record is successfully created, right, I need to send out a success response. I don't have to send everything. I just have to send the ID. So as of now, you can see the ID is configured basically a static value, right? We'll replace that. So now what I'm going to do, right, whenever we use the object store, we need to define, okay, what
we have to store that in a post method, right? Into this.
Can you come again?
We have to store. We have to use the store object store in a post method, right?
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. It should go here. It should come here. It should go here. Okay. The only thing I'm struggling, why I'm not getting a reference here. Okay, here it is. I have downloaded the latest version of the Studio, right? So it was a bit confusing earlier. It was on top and I was looking for this one only. Okay, so when we click on this, right? So there are two things. Whenever you configure any connector in MuleSoft, so there is a connector level configuration. Sorry, there is a connector level operations what we configure here. and there are connector level configuration, what we configure as a part of this. Okay, so when we use object store, we need to tell how long we need this particular key to be stored in the object store. Okay, so there is a way we can make it persistent as long we want. Okay, but for that we need some workaround to it. By default, it will store maximum 30 days if it's not accessed. Okay, just for our use case, I'm going with the 1 hour. Okay, we'll discuss about entry TTL and expiration interval. Okay, so just to give you a brief idea about this, entry TTL will tell the object store for how much time we need this key. So I'll say I need it for 1 hour. Okay, and expiration interval will tell that for how many time object store mule needs to check that the key is expired or not. So basically, I'm saying I have stored the keys at 338, right? So key should be expired by 48. So how that check will happen, whether 48 passed on or not. Okay, so that check is done based on this expiration interval. So what will happen internally, whenever 10 minutes passes, so now when the clock reaches to 318, so it will check into object store and check whether the key is expired. No. Then again 328, it will check it's no. Okay, so it will check in every 10 minutes whether the key is expired or not, whatever we have configured in the entry detail. So this is the purpose of these two things. We'll discuss in detail when we move on, but this is just a high level idea. And I'm keeping this as a persistent. So when we make this check as a persistent, right, even your service gets restarted, unless you delete the application, your object store will be persistent. Okay, even the service get restarted, you will find the value what you have stored before that. Okay, but if it unchecked and your service get crashed, your application get crashed, you won't able to find that values in the object store. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so with this we have configured the object store. Now we have to give the key. Okay, so as part of this use case, we are storing a record to we are storing a customer record. Okay, but in later use case, we also need to fetch that record based on the customer ID, right? So we have to make sure we are storing the object store with the key as a ID only. Okay, so now let's create one variable in system API. In this variable, we will be generating a customer ID key, and that customer ID we will be using as a key to object store also. Okay, so as I said in our previous session when I was explaining this diagram, right? So object store usually stores a key value pair. Okay, you will provide a key, and within that key you can provide a value. It can be a string value, it can be object, it can be array. Okay, so you will be storing in the form of key value only. Okay, so now we will have a individual entries for each keys. Okay, so now let's go back to a data view playground and copy this expression. So I have copied this expression and I'm going to use this thing as a customer key. As Vikas mentioned in the slides, right? This is how we are going to access variables. We give vars and whatever variables we have created, and we will use the data view functions here. Okay, so you can give that, and there are additional functions around it. Fail if present. So if value is already there, right? I need to fail this one. Okay, and that's what I'm going to keep it as default. Okay, so default is false, so it will overwrite the value. I'll say true. Okay, if the value is present, I don't want to insert that. It should always come via patch or put. Okay, so it will fail the value. Now we have stored the payload. Let's return the response back. Okay, that record is created and give the customer ID. We we already have that customer ID in the variable, so I'm just using the same thing here. Okay, so this becomes our response. So this is how we have implemented the post API in the system layer. Any questions so far, guys? You're able to get it right what we have done so far. Everyone? I'll take that as a no. Now let's focus on the implementation functionality. Get functionality. Okay. So I'll just pull out some loggers here. And we need object store retrieve all, because the functionality which we are implementing is now is get all. I need all customer, whatever customer available, I need all that customer. I'm not passing any ID. Okay, so that's why I'm going to retrieve all. So here we don't have to provide any keys. Okay, I'll be retrieving everything, and by default object store will give the response as object. Okay, so I'll be converting that as a JSON here, and I'm just simply passing that as a payload. If it would have written as a JSON, right, we don't have to give the last transform message here. We are just converting the Java object to JSON. So with this our system API is ready. Okay, there are a few more changes I need to do in system API so that Express and system both run parallelly on my local. Okay. Yeah.
I think that's too fast. Can you explain this last one, get part? What the transform part? I didn't get that.
So now we have this feature, what we are developing here, that we need get all customers.
Correct.
For customer present in my object store, I need all that customers, right? But by default, when you get a response from the object store, so that response would be form of a Java object.
Okay, correct.
And when we give that as a response to a consumer won't able to understand that Java object, right? So what I'm doing, I'm getting a Java object from the object store. I'm converting that to a JSON with the help of output application JSON.
Okay, that's it.
Because
The only thing we need to do.
yes.
Oh.
And what I was saying, right? If your backend is already giving you the desired format, in this case JSON, right? You don't have to use this transform message. It would by default carry forward or propagate the same format to the upstream. Okay. Sure. So now what I was saying, right? I'll be running both my experience as well as system layer parallelly. So I need to do some adjustment in my listeners. Okay. So what I'm saying, my listener will run on the local machine and the port used for the system layer is 8083. Okay. So this makes our system API ready. Now let's quickly implement our experience layer as well. Okay. So as a part of previous session, we have prepared the skeleton, right? So now we need to connect to our system layer from experience layer. So we are going to use a HTTP requester. Okay. For that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add first two loggers here. So all data I'm getting as a JSON only, so I don't need any transform message in the experience layer. Okay, I'll simply add HTTP requester. Okay, so what is the path of our system API to get it, right? So that's nothing but this is get customers. So whatever RAML we design, right, and once we use the API kit router to get the skeleton, so just try to observe the name of the private flow. Okay, it has a method in first colon, then your resources. Okay, after resources, your application name config. So this application name config is nothing but the name of your router. Okay, so that router name get will added to there. Okay, and if it's a post method and if you have any content type in it, here we have application JSON. So that also gets added to it after your resources. Okay, so this is how your private resources name get built when we trigger it from the Git router, when it's get generated from the API Git router. Okay, guys. So now the resource for my get method is customers / customers, right? So let's go here. The method is get only. I'll just give a customers. I guess it's a customer or customers. It's a customer. Okay, I have given this as a customer. Now I need to do a configuration part. So this is on the connector level, what we have added as a path. Now I need to add configuration so that my requester will connect to the system layer HTTP listener. So as I show you on the system layer listener, right, it's connecting on a local host. So I'll keep it as a local host, and the port we have changed it to 8083. Okay, so this is the basic configuration you need to do it for now. We'll discuss about the HTTPS protocol, certificate, key store, trust store in subsequent section when we go towards more advanced topic, right? But now this is the basic configuration you need to do. Okay, I'll click on OK. So we have done that configuration. Okay, you saw the error is gone. Okay, so I'll just rename it get all customer. Okay, now similarly, let's have this requester for post one, where we have to select method as a post and the and we already created one configuration for system API. Same we are going to reuse here. Okay, so as you can see, right, the operations I'm using different, but it's referring back to a same HTTP configuration. Okay, so if your backend is the same, so you can reuse the same HTTP configuration instead of recreating again and again. Okay, so logger, sorry. And we don't need this transform message because we are getting a proper response from system API already. Create customer. Okay, so there are no other configurations required. Let me just quickly check the port of this listener, expense layer listener. It should be on 8081 only. Yeah, I have taken this as a dynamic one, right? So I need to pass that port because we will be running this on the cloud at the end, right? So for now, I'll just change it to 8082, 8081, whatever we want, right? So I'm going with 8082 for now. Later, when we deploy on cloud hub, right, we'll see what all changes needed in this application. So now both of our applications are ready. So what I'll do, I already have created one run configuration, right? So what you can do, you can, whenever you want to run multiple application at once, right? You just have to right click on any one of the application, go to run configurations. In the run configuration, there is an option called as run configuration again. Here, we will get the first tab where general, where you can select all the application which you want to run. Okay. So, but this is goal is created for some other application. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to create a new launch. It will create a new one. I'll just say that customer API, and there I'll be selecting X customer, S customer. Okay. And if your application needed any runtime argument like environment variable, any other runtime argument that can be passed from this one. Okay. We'll discuss that when we make a use of a property files, right? That time we'll discuss about this, how we can pass the runtime argument. But for now, let's run both the application, apply, it run. Okay. So in the console, we could see that one by one application get built first, and once the build is successfully, parallelly both application get will get in the running mode. Okay, it may take 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so till the time it's getting started. Anyone has any questions so far? What we have discussed, or anyone want me to repeat what I have explained? Any confusion? Any questions, guys? You understood, right? What we are doing?
Yeah, yeah. Only thing is this data we have to extensively use, right? Just for transformation and everything.
Yeah. Whenever we have a need of doing a transformation or data manipulation, right, within the application, that time, yeah, data view we have to use.
Okay. We have to first go through that.
Yeah, we'll have one session. You can
Mhm.
go through, no harm in
Yeah.
that. You can go through by your own. That would build up your, that will give you more clarity when we
Yeah.
discuss actually on.
Initially, we can understand at least means because
Yes.
in a current application what I'm working, this transformation is a very big task. Here, I think only even output dot this it generally converts that Java object into JSON. That's really quick.
It's really quick here. I know the pain. I was in DIPCO also. There
Okay.
was one-to-one mapping and again
Right.
finding of the content type. Yeah. There we have to do a lot of stuff. But here,
Correct.
just for transformation, we just give the output. What in what format we need output. That's it.
Okay.
Will take care of everything.
Mhm.
Yeah. But when you work on a real-time project, right, there we will get a different scenarios where we are orchestrating our request to multiple systems. We are getting
Right.
request response from multiple system.
Mhm.
Based on one reference, we have to identify a payload from another system, then do a concatenation, then a transformation in the desired format, right? So
Right.
in that place, this data would be very, very helpful and useful.
Correct. Correct. Just like in Dipit was XPath, same as the data view here we are using.
Yes. But I use the TIPCO for not for I think 7 years back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So at that time XPath as in we can just give a explicit path. I think that was a relative path, right? What we are getting
Mhm.
the request, right? But
Right.
here you can do a lot more stuff.
Mm.
I don't know the recent functionalities of TIPCO.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked 7 years back only, but yeah, in MuleSoft you can do a lot of things. Okay.
So Venkatesh, about assignment, as per my understanding, we have to implement two calls, one get and one post, and uh, in post we have to push the records into the object store, and in get we have to retrieve the records. This is about the assignment.
No, that's partially correct. The get and post, anyways, I have showed you right how it
Hmm.
done. So
Mhm.
your job to implement the other three methods: delete, put, and get by ID, customer by ID.
Okay.
So what I have done, I have implemented this get customer.
Hmm.
Sorry, I have implemented create customer and get all customer. Now it's your job to implement get customer by ID, update customer by ID that it's put, and delete customer by ID. So these three things you need to.
Yeah, here I had confusion in the experience layer and the system layer. You have shown two APIs.
Mm-hmm.
In the first experience layer only, we are implementing all the methods. Um, then,
So consider this two things as a logical separations. Okay, a
Mhm.
logical grouping. In system API job is to connect to a backend. That's
Mhm.
it. No,
Okay.
no other things. Okay. What are the dependency related to backend? If they need, if the backend is protected with some security mechanism like OAuth, so that token also system layer needs to be generated and then call a backend. So consider the job of system layer is like just to connect to a backend. Okay.
Okay, and from experience layer, we are just calling the system API to
Yes.
get the data from object store.
Yes. So job of experience layer is to validate your incoming request. Okay. So when Vikas has showed in the first session the API-led architecture, right? We saw the experience process and system layer, right? So basically, system layer is mostly used to connect to a dedicated backend, and that's the layer we are mostly reusing. Okay, because let's say I'm at this moment I'm connecting from the web application, so I'll expose my experience layer endpoint to that web application, and that web application will connect to a same as customer API. Now in future there is a need of mobile app, so I don't want my X customer API getting reused by mobile app, because mobile app may have their own enhancement, their own requirement, right? So for that purpose, I will be creating a new application X hyphen customer hyphen mobile hyphen API, and through that new application, I'll reconnecting to the same system there, reusing the same system there. So you're understanding where the reusability is coming into picture, right?
Yes.
Yes, and similarly, when the process layer comes into picture, whenever we are connecting with the multiple systems, I have to connect to Salesforce, I have to connect to SAP, I have to connect to other ERP, CRM tool, get all information, do a transformation. So here we are doing orchestration as well as transformation, right? So for this complex business logic, process layer will come into picture, and process layer also is we can reuse mostly, but most of the time we go system, we will reuse system layer only most of the time, then process layer, and the least reusable component is a expense. So
Okay.
these are just logical segregations. That
Okay, and here in the diagram there is a customer database and the object store. Uh, Object store is also like a database. Then what is
no,
the difference between them?
no, no, it's not database. In my previous session, when I was explaining this, right? So object store is a temporary storage provided by MuleSoft. It's not at all a storage actually. Okay, we cannot replace that with a storage. This has limitations. Okay, because it uses your worker memory. Okay. So if you are storing big data set here, it will impact performance of your application, because your application memory will be utilizing more because of object store instead of the processing, transaction processing, right? So the specific scenario where we need object store is like when we are storing a OAuth tokens. You are aware about the OAuth, right?
Yeah,
OAuth
yeah.
policy, sorry, OAuth authentication mechanism. So basically, we generate some token, and that token has some validity like 15 to 20 minutes. So that level of thing we can cache it in our system and store, which are in less in the size, and the transient, because after 15 minutes there is no value of that token, right? It will get expired and you cannot reuse. So in that scenario, we can make a use of object store. Okay, but data as a database itself is a very vast topic, right? Where we actually do a persistent storing. We have actually a relationship across different tables, right? So we are not going to replace uh, database with object store. Okay, just I don't wanted to directly jump on database for a basic session, so I went with the object store. If we could have go with the database again, we ended up creating a tables, then the relations across that table, then again connectivity from Mule application to database. So we will be pulling a lot of things, right? So initial session we just wanted you to get comfortable with MuleSoft. Once you are comfortable, then we'll jump onto that advanced. Yeah. Only that's the reason we went with the objects for this. Yeah. Okay. So any other question, guys? My application is, let's see.
Venkatesh, one more doubt.
Yeah.
So, like as you mentioned, it is for the temporary object store. So, like in the real time scenario, it is like the OTP and the authentication. So, where it's only take 10 to 15 minutes of storage time, like that, right? For
Mhm.
that purpose, this store, object store is useful.
Yeah, it's very suitable for that purpose. Because see, why to additionally call a system if we know that authentication will work, right? For another 10 to 15 minutes. There is
Yes.
no need to spend additional time on that, right? So in that case, we can just cache it within our application and we can avoid that additional hop. That's
Okay.
good.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Venkatesh.
So my application is still not yet started. I don't see any error. Well, let's wait for a minute, guys. Okay, it's happening. Something is happening. Okay, it's going there. Yeah, meanwhile,
So
any other?
still in the process of deploying, right,
Yeah,
Venkatesh?
still deploying. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So, guys, any other questions? Or meanwhile, I can explain the assignment. Okay, I know I have given the idea about the assignment with Shraddha's question, but I'll just explain again. So, I have showed you how to create a post and get method, okay, in System API and how to connect from Express to System API. Testing is pending, but I have showed you how that worked, okay. So now your assignment would be you need to create a get customer ID, put customer ID and delete customer ID. That is get customer by ID, update customer by ID, delete customer by ID. So these three things you need to work it on. You need to design a RAML for system API, okay, implement the object store part, understand how it works, and then implement the HTTP requester to make a call to object store. Okay, so to implement this particular functionality, you will be using retrieve. There is a function in the object store, right? For object store, you will be using a retrieve. When you use a retrieve, you will be giving a key to that. Okay. And when you go to put and delete, okay, so delete is also straightforward. We have the, sorry, we have the operator for delete also. It's called as remove, where you will give the key. Okay, but the tricky part is update. So I want you to spend more time on this, guys, and understand how it works. Okay, and if I know you would able to achieve it, but if you stuck anywhere or you are unable to complete this particular put one, that's fine. We'll cover that in the next session. But this is tricky one, and you'll get to know when you implement it. Okay, get and delete is straightforward. So I would suggest start with that first. Any question, guys, on the assignments?
How we will configure the object store? Are you sharing any credentials or something?
No, I told you, right, how to do that.
Okay,
Shraddha.
that.
You have missed it, but I'll repeat again. So right click
From
on
the
your,
data.
sorry, sorry, anyone saying something?
No, please go on, Venkatesh.
Yeah, so you click on the project, right click on your project.
Mhm.
Okay. Then you see a manage dependencies and there you see manage modules. Okay. So object store is one of the feature modules. So you see a plus icon here and go to featured modules. And here you will find all the feature model and one of the model is object store. Okay.
Okay.
Check that, click apply, apply close. If the model is not available there, just click here, go to exchange. You will getting one prompt after credentials like this. Just add your account and search that particular module what you are looking for and just finish. So once you click apply close, it will add a dependency in your project and you will able to see that module in the mule palette when you search. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Guys, the application is started. Let's quickly go to Postman connection. I have created one sample request here. Okay. And intentionally, I have given mobile number as a string. So in the RAML, we define that as a in the RAML, we define that as a number, right? So my request should fail at the experience layer itself. It should not go to system API. It should fail at the kit router. So Ketan, you asked this question about the exception handling, right? The kit router exception handling.
Right.
Now the expectation should be it's a bad request. It will show go to a transfer message and it will give the whatever configure in this bad request. Okay. So let's see that. Are we getting the request? Okay, it failed. I can see in the consoles, right? Console log. So this is called as console logs. Okay, it failed and it gives the bad request. Okay, so that we understood how API Kit router validate our request. Clear, guys? And these are the mandatory field. If you don't pass, again you will get a bad request error. So let's give me some valid number here. I have hit it. So now it will go to something went wrong. Okay, it failed. See, there is another thing here. Here we are getting 500 server error. It's an unhandled exception. Though we have added an exception strategy here, but still it's unhandled. I'll tell you why. We will discuss in detail when we discuss about exception handling, but just for this discussion sake, right? So when we configure a error handler in Java, we give a catch, right? Try catch block where we have a different catches, right? So similarly here, when we configure error handler, we will tell what type of error we need for that specific error handler. So if you see here, right, I have given the API Kit router by default given different type, bad request, not found. Okay. So all these types are some predefined type. That's what we are expecting. When I say predefined type, right, this is the expected type. Then only the exception would handle. And there is no generic catch here. Okay. That's why it's not going to a exception strategy and it will just throwing a 500 exception. We'll get to that when we discuss the error handling part, just for your understanding why we got a 500. Okay. Now let's see the exact cause. Okay. So it says it not found, API is not found. So can anyone tell me what might be the mistake here? What might mistake I have done here? Guys? Anyone? So
Might be port number.
the port number is correct.
Haven't passed the ID.
No, we don't need ID. Yeah, what
I
was
think the
that?
base API is not there.
Yeah, right. The base path. The base
Base
path
API.
was missing. So in HTTP listener, we saw that, right? Whenever request comes in, it is identified based on the API/customer, right? But when we are making a call to system API, we are not passing that base path, right? Either you can add this base path on the requester configuration level or on the individual level. Okay, I'm going with the individual as of now. Let's save it. Okay, so if you do any changes in your Anypoint Studio while the application is running, by default, when you save it, it will restart your server. Okay, I'm going with that. So usually I prefer to switch this off because whenever I do a save, right, it will restart my application. So I guess I'm using the new studio, so it will restart the or redeploy the application. Let's wait for a second because stopping and deploying again is taking a lot of time. Okay, let's see how it goes. So far nothing is happening. I guess it's better to deploy the app. Sorry guys, it's taking a lot of time. I'm stopping it and I'm deploying again. Just 5 more minutes, guys. Okay, I will close it up quickly. So meanwhile, it's starting up, right? Any other questions? Anyone? You're clear on the assignments, right? Because anything you want to cover meanwhile this is running?
Yeah, just wanted to know the feedback from the audience over here, like where we can improve or what improvements you want in this session. Ketan, Kiran, Shubda, others.
As of now, we are going good. Actually, by doing the assignments, we are getting more clarification.
Okay, that's good. Then I think Venkatesh, before next session, we should expect the assignments to be completed because the audience is understanding what we are telling, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's good.
So before let's say doing the assignments, if we're stuck anywhere, can we connect and we can discuss, or
That we are
Yeah,
already doing, right, Ketan?
yep.
In Telegram, we are
So you
already.
can ping on that Telegram channel either me or Venkatesh who would be available. They will connect with you.
okay, okay. Yeah, I know means weekdays will be busy, but yeah, like if we can spare 10 to 15 minutes, that will be good.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, because most of the things will be sorted out on the chat only, right?
Right, right.
That's what happening. But if any dedicated 10-minute call is required, right, we can plan it. No worries.
Mhm. Because that day it's really going worst. I tried logging in multiple times, so I'm not sure what's the issue.
No, the issue was with the permissions only. So the I have registered you with the API which I have created, right? And
Mhm.
there I have given you the basic level of permissions where you can view the application. I thought that would allow you to deploy as well. Okay, then I realized that and I have removed all the permission I have, and then I made you the admin. Okay, so
But then
now
also it wasn't working. I just exported the jar file and deployed directly via the API manager.
no,
From any
that's
point, it's not
see,
working.
AnyPoint platform. If you see right, when you give the credential, it will cache it for 7 days. Okay,
Okay.
so that might be the issue that time. But sometimes AnyPoint platform we face issues. Okay, while
Mhm.
connecting to the cloud hub. If it's in a different region, if it's in the EU region, so we need to do some configurations. Okay, so if you are stuck on the deployment part from the AnyPoint Studio, I would suggest go ahead and directly deploy your application. Don't rely on the AnyPoint Studio for
Mhm.
deployment. Sometimes it fails. Okay. Usually it works, but sometimes if you are facing issue, just keep that part and deploy it from the cloud hub. And in the next session, right, we'll discuss on that issue and we'll try to resolve it. Okay. But
Okay.
don't set it up for the AnyPoint Studio only. Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any other feedback, guys? You're able to catch up, right? What we are saying, the speed, the content, it's good, right? So far.
Yeah, it's really very
Yes.
good. As I Shubda said, the assignments giving us more clarity, and we are able to recollect the concepts what you were explaining.
And one more thing, guys. Today is a MuleSoft meetup, okay, for Varanasi location. So Venkatesh would be hosting that meetup. He will be a speaker at that meetup. So Venkatesh, if you can ping that the link how to register for that event. So anybody interested to learn about the universal API management, how it is done, then Venkatesh would be explaining that in today's meetup in Varanasi. It's a virtual meetup, and it will be happening around 6 p.m. Right, Venkatesh?
Yes, yes, 6 p.m.
Yeah. So yep, if anybody interested to learn about the universal API management feature of AnyPoint platform, then please join Venkatesh in that event.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one more thing. Next Saturday I won't be available. So if everyone is fine with Friday, can we have only for next coming week?
Friday for me it's very hard.
See, yeah, Fridays it won't be possible, Shubda. Like we are also stuck in our project work, right? So we can do on Sunday if everyone is in agreement.
No, in that case it is fine. On Saturday I'll see the video because for 1 week I won't be available.
But the thing is that from Mondays to Fridays, right? We're also in our project work, right? So it will be
No.
difficult to find time during weekdays. So
Mhm.
okay,
So let's see Subda how it goes, right? Anyways, the recording would be there. You can
yep,
refer to that
yep.
and you come back to us anytime.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll go through the recording, and if I have any question, I'll ping you on that Telegram group.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, guys, almost done. Yeah, we are almost there. Just give it a minute or two again. So you guys are all from Pune only?
I am from Pune location. Ketan here.
And I'm from Bangalore location.
I'm also from Bangalore.
I'm from Pune actually. Pune.
So Venkatesh and Vikas both are from Pune?
No, I'm from Pune. Vikas is from Delhi actually. Right?
I'm from Punjab. Yeah, Mohali location, Shubham.
Chennai.
Yep.
So
And
how
nearby
is the
Chandigarh.
coordinating? Once you were colleague, or how is it?
Yeah, we are colleagues working for same company. Yep. So we interacted while working on some common project assignment. Yep. And then we got in touch, and we active community members also, MuleSoft community, right? So there also we contribute via our blogs, and Venkatesh usually contribute via blogs, and I prepare the videos. Okay, and I have my through the LinkedIn also. So so there are different ways we are contributing to the MuleSoft community. So that's the common connection between me and Venkatesh. Yeah, so that's where we met, and like we decided like to just host and get these sessions for the ones or the beginners in MuleSoft.
Okay.
I think you have also worked in Infosys, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how much time like you spent over here?
4 years.
4 years.
In
And now you're in which company?
And now I am with Ralph Lauren. After
Okay.
Infosys 4 years, I worked for IBM, and then last year I joined Ralph Lauren.
Okay. Okay. And Ketan, you are in which company?
I'm working in Wipro from last 5 years. 5 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wipro. So on the project side also, on the work front also, like your guys are transitioning from like TIBCO to MuleSoft, or like how is it going?
And that is the target actually. Because
Okay.
currently till now, from last 11 years, I was working in TIBCO. So it's time to switch, and literally speaking, this Java and all this language I'm not that much comfortable with. So MuleSoft seems to be much more easy grabbing, and it's another kind of integration platform. So
Sure. Okay. Cool. Yep. Sure. I think
Yeah.
Venkatesh, I think it's deployed, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's deployed. Sorry guys for this long delay. So let's go back to our first call. Create API. Okay, I believe this time it will create a record in object store. Yeah, we got the ID. Okay, so record was successfully created and we got the ID. Let me just store that ID somewhere. So this is our ID. So now let's go back to Postman. So you understood, right? What happened is we have connected from experience to system layer. So if you observe the logs here, right, how it goes. So I have just added a loggers for that purpose only, just to showcase how it's happening. Okay. So first entry comes into experience layer. Okay. This is a logger message from experience layer. You can just see here. Okay. Logged in the experience layer as an info, we log the payload. Then from experience layer, it went to system API. You can see the system API name here. It went to system API that created object in the object store, and now this is the exit log from the system API, and at the end we will be having the last log from the experience layer. Okay, So this is how the flow started from experience, went to system and end in the experience. You understood, right? The flow, and the record got created, right? So now let's see the record is present in the object store or not. And I'm not passing any body here. It's a get method. Let's see what response they are getting. So yeah, we could see the record is created here, right? So the record is in inline JSON string. Okay. So in next session, we'll see how we could handle this using object store, how we could convert that into a plain JSON object instead of JSON string. Okay. We'll get that in the expected format. So our expected format, if we could see the RAML, right? Our expected format should look like this. It should look like this. This is the expected format we have for get, right? Get all user. It should be wrapped within an array because we are getting all users, right? And we'll be having a customers within that array. But the format what we are getting is a bit different. So we'll see how we can transform that as per our need. Okay. And another thing what we will see, maybe not in next session, but when we have exception handling, maybe we can plan it for next only, but we'll see the exception. So you remember, right? I have unchecked that particular check. If the object is present in object store, I should get an error, right? So when I try to create the same object, this time it will not fail because we are randomly generated in this key, right? So it will not fail, right? But we'll see that later when we update the object store and we provide ID. If it's not there, that time we'll see the exception handling. This time it will not fail, sorry, my bad. But now if you can see get, right, we could see two objects has been created. So this is how we will create a experience system layer connectivity, guys. How we make a call from experience to system layer on your local Anypoint Studio, and what all configuration needs to be changed to run this both application at the same time. So understood, right, guys? Any questions on this?
No, it's good.
Okay. We are good on the assignment also, right? In that case.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it then from my end.
Yep. Thank
Over-
you. Thank you, Venkatesh. Okay, I think that's what we wanted to cover in this agenda. Okay. So yeah, so do make sure to follow us on YouTube, medium.com and LinkedIn. And if you're also some of your friends also looking to get this training on MuleSoft, yeah, you can let us know and we can get them invited to our Telegram channel and in these sessions as well. Okay, thank you guys for your time and have a good day ahead and have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Vikas. Thank you, Venkatesh.
Thank you, everyone.